G'day everyone. It's been quite a bit of time, probably 4 years since I did part one to this SSL6000. Um, Not much has happened since I did that video other than it being assembled and a few faults repaired in it. But for the most part, it still doesn't work. Doing some fault finding in it, the only power supply that I had for it failed. Of the two power supplies that came with it, one of them never worked, and the other one worked for a while, and then it just up and failed. It's over there on the floor behind the camera. But I am in the process of building a replacement. So on top of the rack over there, it's a switch mode with medical grade high frequency switching modules, switch mode modules within that. But things have changed a lot since I bought this as well. My original plan was to set this up as a mixing space, post-production space, etc. But then COVID hit and life changed and my kids have moved out of home and a lot's changed in that time. I've also closed down or sold my business, pretty much shut down another business. I just didn't want to play there anymore. And I've now got a 9-to-5 job in a government position. So life's sort of bit cruisier these days instead of the self-employment rat race. But anyway, I'm quite disappointed, annoyed, sad that I haven't got this up and running to how I wanted to get it running, and also it's taken up a huge amount of room and I don't need it anymore. Not that, if I really am honest, I didn't really need it in the first place, but I was going to build a life around this console, or a use around this console when I first got it. But I'm not getting rid of it, and I'm not selling it. I do want to keep it, but I don't need to keep it in the format that it is at the moment. Now when I bought this, it was sold to me as, and I paid a lot of money for it. It was sold to me as a turnkey, ready-to-use console that it was in excellent condition, pristine condition, and it had been fully recapped. It was ready to plug in and go. It's not the case. Now, I'm not saying that the fellow that I bought it off stooged me or anything like that. I actually believe that he believed that it was in the condition that he told me it was in. I think what's knocked it around is that it was in storage in a garage for 5 years before I got it. And it had also been shipped from Belgium to England to Melbourne, then from Melbourne up here to Cairns, which is nearly 4,000 kilometres. Not the distance really makes a difference, but I think the sitting in storage in a garage didn't help it at all. There's a lot of noisy switches, a lot of noisy pots, switches that don't work. That's just down to noise. I've gone through lots of things. I've replaced a lot of the matrix switch groups. A lot of those didn't work. A lot of them didn't latch. But there's lots of noise. There's noisy connectors, noisy pots, noisy switches, noisy everything. Almost every VU meter bulb is blown. This thing's just full of issues. It's in many respects. If I was an SSL tech, I'd probably look at this and say it's the amount of work it needs. It's really probably not worth the money to get it going again. But I'm not an SSL tech. I'm not having to pay an SSL tech to do this. But I am a tech. I'm an electronics tech. I'm a communications technician, and I still work in that field. I'm working in electronics in radio systems and communications electronics. So this is in my wheelhouse. So and it's a bit of a storage space underneath as well, which is a bit of a problem. But the plan for this is to get it going again, but in a different format. Essentially, I don't need a big SSL6000 console. So I know there's some people going to get a bit grouchy and probably throw a few negative comments at me or whatever. I don't care. It's my console. But with what I'm doing, this thing's going to go on and have a life. It's going to live, and some of its parts are also going to go on, or many of its parts are going to go on and have a life as well, instead of just sitting in here being a pretty piece of very expensive furniture. So to what I'm going to do. Like has happened to quite a lot of these consoles, I'm cutting it down. I'm going to bring it down to, at this stage, I'm thinking to a 24 channel, so 3 buckets and the master section. I'm going to remove these 3 buckets. I'm also going to delete the patch bay. Yeah, I know, you might be saying, don't do it, don't delete the patch bay, but I want this just to be a standalone console. So what I'm going to do is get back panels cut, I'll get them laser cut, and mount in D-sub connectors, and I may put in XLRs on the mic inputs, but everything else will be D-sub. And then that makes it pretty easy to be just a standalone console, because sometime down the track I might choose to sell this. And it makes it more usable for the next person. And the thing is, it can be expanded back out again if someone wants to, but you know, that would be a lot of work, a lot of money, and a lot of parts. So, as you can see, it's already somewhat apart because I have been chasing some faults through it. Trying to get the new power supply working on it, which has been a little bit problematic, and it shouldn't have been, but it's an issue with the 11 volt rail, which is derived from a well, it's a 7 volt rail. The difference between a 7 volt rail and the 18 volt rail, the way that that's tied is a bit weird, and the power supply module that I've got in there is not really liking it. But so essentially what I'm going to do is also delete the 6000 part of it, or the part that makes this a 6000 console, which is the A, B and C buses and all of its bits going on. This has problems in it. Circuits for this are, well, the complete section's pretty hard to get. I've got some schematics for it, but not everything, and it just makes it hard to trace faults through this particular part, particularly when you know, I've never used that part before. It's a bit complex, and to me anyway, it's a bit complex, and it's doing functions that are not necessary for what I need this console to do. So essentially removing that, and I'll not sure how I'm going to set up the A, B and C buses other than I might put in a I don't know, a little summing mixer or a summing stage and sum them together, or set them up as with just passive routing. I don't know yet. That's something that can be done fairly easily. But these 24 channels, they're going to come out, and I'm going to set those up in some nice little sidecar timber cases as 2-channel groups with their own power supplies and connectors on the back of that little standalone 2-channel sidecar, and I'll be selling those as 2-channel sidecar groups. I've got some stereo channels. There's one over here. So I've got quite a few stereo channels that aren't in the console, obviously, so they will get the same sort of treatment. I'm going to set up a few little sidecars that's just got a stereo channel in it, or maybe a mono channel, or maybe 2 mono channels and a stereo channel in it. Bit configurable. I don't know, I'll see. I'll put the feelers out and I'll see what people want. If somebody wants some specific a specific little sidecar built up, well then I'll build that. What I'm not going to do is cut the channels up. I'm not going to change the channels in any way. I am going to take the computer, the recall matrix cards and the ribbon cables and stuff off it. Whatever channels I sell, they can go with it, but it's just more of a, you know, doesn't need to be on there kind of thing. The computer for this is it's sitting out in my shed out the back. It's a G+ computer. It doesn't work either, and it was supposed to. And I never even spent some time even looking on that. So I made up the 50-pin dongles to just loop the VCA back on all channels. So, and then remove these buckets, remove that bucket, remove the 6000 VU meters, which is the A, B and C bus stereo meter groups there. I'm probably also going to reduce the width of the master section bucket, essentially get rid of the 6000 segment of it, and those faders. And I may even set up an 8-channel sidecar with a set of meters and offer up one of those for sale. And I need to recoup some money back out of this thing as well, so because I've got quite a bit of money in it. So that's essentially the plan. So in this video, it's going to be quite a long time to actually shoot this one. So from this recording that I'm doing right now to the point where I actually release the video is going to be maybe a year. So if you're watching this, I probably recorded this bit a year ago because I don't have a huge amount of time. I'm busy, but I do want to get this done. But I am going to record and go through the modifications that I do to this right through to the point where she's a working, usable 24-channel console. There might be some variation to how I actually do it. I may end up keeping this bucket in it, so keeping it a 32-channel frame, and just take out the two remaining buckets and the patch bay bucket, and I might populate this with stereo channels because I've got 6 G+ stereo channels and a bunch of I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Yeah, I got 4 E channel strips. So there's 2 over there under the bench, and there's another one in the isolation booth over there, and there's another bucket in there that's loaded up with the G+ stereo channels as well. So I'm not really sure yet. It'll come down. I just need to get the tape measure out and work out if it's going to fit in that space. If it's not, then I'll probably just cut it down to 24. And the thing is, I don't really need a huge amount of channels. This thing really is going to be a small mixer. I'm not doing big band recording stuff in here. I'm not doing big mixing stuff. And if I do mix a bigger session, then I can, group things and run it through this if I want. It's really going to be more of a fancy, well, for the want of a better term, an effects unit, I guess. But I don't know. I don't want to part with it. I want to keep it. So it's either going to be a 16 mono 8 stereo or a 24 mono 8 stereo. I'll work that out over the coming months. But anyway, enough waffling. So let's. I'm going to get into it. So when I'm doing the work on this, I'm just literally going to set up a time lapse, and when necessary, I'll do some, talking about different stuff that I'm doing. But essentially, I'm just going to start off with getting rid of the problematic 6000 section. That will be put up for sale as well on its own. And when I do put that up for sale, it will be the entire 6000 unit, any cabling and looms associated with that, the VU meters, the VCAs, like the long big faders, the long faders, the card that goes underneath the fader bus card, and anything associated with that, possibly even the internal looms and the patch bay that's tied up with that as well. But there are on the 2 rows that comes out to, in and out to, there's other things on that. So I may not sell that patch bay with this because I'm looking at selling the patch bay separately. So I really do need to get as much as I can for this, just to put you in the picture. I paid $59,000 for this console, which, if I'm brutally honest, was a bit much if it was a turnkey console like it was supposed to be. And like I say, I'm not accusing anybody that it was or wasn't. I firmly believe that he thinks that it was, but he hadn't seen it running for 5 years. He did decommission it, but so there's absolutely no negative vibes towards the fellow that I bought this from. The few times that I've spoken to him, immensely nice fella, and it was. It's just one of those things. It's an old piece of equipment. Old gear doesn't like being stored. So, it's buyer beware. That's all it is. So, absolutely no hard feelings there whatsoever. But anyway, so now I'm trying to make the best of it. But anyway, so when that goes up for sale, that'll be everything that goes with that. Obviously keeping the master section. The computer section also, that will be coming out completely. I will be putting the computer and that panel and monitor, the keyboard panel and the monitor panel up for sale as well. I don't know if anyone would be really interested in buying a G+ complete computer. But, I might even just chuck it up for a few $100. I'm sure it's going to be worth just spare parts to somebody. It's definitely absolutely nothing is going in the bin. Anything that I can sell out of this that I don't need will be going. all of the cards in this, actually, they're all, there's one that doesn't work, one of the channel strips. I think it's channel 16. I can't remember. It's in this part of the console here. It keeps blowing the fuse resistors, so there's clearly a fault on that board. I did find a fault in the on one of the matrix switch rows where the there was it wasn't sat within the pins quite right, and the supply rail was shorted straight to ground. That didn't fix the fault. That was there's obviously another fault there, but anyway, I'll find that. Yeah, so that's where it's at anyway. So like I say, I'm waffling now, but it's a beautiful console. I would love to see it working, and that's what I'm going to do. It's just going to be in a more compact kind of situation, more compact package. It will make it easier to maintain and keep running, and it means that I'll be able to use it instead of it being here as a big monster that's just got lots of faults in it. And obviously, as I sidecar up the individual channels, any faults with those will be sorted out. Now, I mentioned earlier that it had been recapped, and it has been. The center section has definitely had all of its cards within it. The electrolytics have been replaced, and all of the electrolytics on the channel cards they've all been done as well. So that work was done, and that would have been significant cost to the previous owner. It came, like when it was shipped to SSL, I was told that they'd gone right through it and made sure that anything that needed doing was doing. Well, clearly they didn't, because one of the power supplies was dead. Most of the VU meter bulbs were blown. You know, that's all small, simple stuff, you know. But problem is, they're 48 volt globes. They're festoon lamps. They don't grow on trees. Yeah, I can get them, but they're like $5 Australian each bulb, and that's 72 meters there, or 70 something meters there anyway. So it's a lot of money. So I've started converting them to LED. Yeah, it's a process, and there's also money in that, but it means that they're going to last forever. Well, certainly longer than what globes are. But anyway, that's basically it. So let's get into repairing it. Modifying it, I mean. Let's start some disassembly. One thing I'm also hoping to find out about this console is I don't know what its serial number is. It normally has a serial number sticker on the end of the buckets with who it was originally manufactured for. This one doesn't, not on either end, so I'm hoping that when I split these buckets apart, we'll actually find at least one down in there, just out of interest sake. I know it was, I'm pretty sure it was originally installed in Motor Music. I know it spent a lot of time there in Motor Music in Belgium, but I'm just not sure, and I haven't been able to find it, so that'll be a bit interesting. Alright, well I've got to a bit of a milestone after several days of pulling, tracing, labelling, cutting out cables. I know it hurts to say that, but yes, cutting cabling out of the patch bays. I was hoping to pull the 688 section out with the patch bays, but anyway, this milestone is I've removed the 6000 series part of the console, or the SL688V, and its associated cabling. I've tried to be as least destructive as I can to that cabling, with the hopeful eventuation that that section can be reused by somebody else. They're not a common thing to find. I've never ever seen one for sale secondhand. I'm sure they're out there, but this one's going to be for sale. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't need all of that, those features of the 6000 series section. I'm in many respects regretting buying a 6000. Only that I really just want a 4000. Just with its simplicity, just mixing down to 2 channels. So that's why I'm cutting this down, and it's space. I just now don't have the space to have such a big console. Yeah, it's a shame to be cutting it down. I know that every one that gets cut down is one less in the world, but it is what it is. It either gets cut down or gets scrapped or gets sold off for way less than what I need to get for it because of its current not working state. So the decision is to make it usable and give it a life well into the future, and also make the parts. There's a great big pile of parts over there that I'll be rejuvenating into standalone sidecars and selling those to try and recoup some cost as well. So I will be using every single little piece of this as much as I can. Of course, there's going to be a few little bits and pieces that won't be able to be used, basic stuff, offcuts of cable, and probably the multiplexer boards. They'll be coming out, but I'll also be putting those up for sale. So whether they're sellable or not, don't know. But anyway, so what we've got is clearly there's been a heap of stuff being cut out of it. The 688 section is out of there, and all of its associated cables are pulled out as well and removed from the patch bay, and I've labelled the ends of all of the cables, with the exception of about 4 that looped back down to the loom to they're not EDAC connectors, the connectors on the bottom of the console anyway, but looking at the connectors, whoever reuses it should be able to work out what they are from the schematics. So as much of the cable length has been retained, so I've cut them at the back of the patch bays, so the cabling is completely reusable in a 48 frame console with a end patch bay, but then the cables could be easily extended if need be. All that's left is the ribbon cables that need to be pulled out. The VCA bus board has been removed. everything associated with the 688 has been removed, the meters, everything like that, so that'll all go up as a bundle. So the next stage is to go through and pull the ribbon cables out. That's going to be a bit of a mission. And once that's done, it's going to be cut down time. I will unbolt the different sections and rebolt it together. I've made the final decision. Earlier in this video I was talking about what I was thinking of cutting it down to, but I spent quite a bit of time just staring at the thing and thinking about it and trying to work out what I want to be able to do with this console. So the end result is it's going to be the first 3 buckets with 24 mono channels. They're staying as they are. There's going to be the master section. The computer section, that's coming out because the computer is going to be put up for sale as well. This is a G+ computer associated with this. I don't need it. I'm not going to be doing any automation or anything like that on this console. So I will be pulling the display and the computer keyboard out, and they will be offered up for sale with the computer. And I will be getting a new panel built or cut and laser engraved for the transport and the solo and PFL controls. So they'll remain the same. There'll be these buttons, they'll be coming out of this panel, but then the rest of it will go. That whole bucket is coming out, and we're putting in an 8-channel bucket down in there, which makes it a standard 4000 size frame, and then putting that gear back in there. This bucket will be remaining, and that's going to have 8 stereo channels in it, 2 E-series and 6 G+. This bucket's going, this bucket's going, and the 19-inch bucket's going to go with the patch bay. I was going to keep that for outboard equipment, but when I really thought about it, all my outboard gear is in racks. I don't need additional space, and where the console's going over in that corner, it's a better fit physically, and it'll be on casters so that it can be rolled out into this section here, and used as a big fat sidecar basically, I guess, but a bit of a monster sidecar. So that's where it's going to be. It's going to be 5 standard size buckets basically, with master section split, even though it's a inline console. The stereo section is going to be split to the right hand side of the master section. Monos are going to be on the left hand side, and I'm still going with the plan of D-sub connectors on the back, XLRs for the microphone inputs, and I'll stick with D-sub for the tape returns and line inputs. So that's where we're at with it. It's been quite a few days go into it so far, quite a few evenings. It's not a small project, and I'm trying to do it right. I'm labeling everything as I go, really trying to be minimalistic in the destruction of the as part of this modification process. So that's where we're at the moment. Stay tuned. Okay, bit of a milestone. The patch panels are pretty much ready to remove. I've identified, labelled and cut away, I know I hate saying that, but anyway, moving towards the project forward, cut away anything that's going up into the console. They're all laid out over the back. All of the DL connectors are unscrewed, and I've labelled those and popped those up into the panel. So ideally, most of these patch panels here should now just lift out, which I'm about to show. There are some terminations that are left that are coming from down in the console. Not sure exactly where from, but I'll identify that. I'll go through the DL connector pin layouts, identify what those cables are, label them, then cut them off. But I will leave a tail, and that comes out of the wiring loom in the back of the console and down into the DL connectors. So I'll get all that out of the way, which will then expose all the power cabling, the circuit breakers, the switching, and the wiring harness for the power cabling. I'll identify those off the back of the power switches, label them, and then take those off, lay them out of the way, ready to go. That then just leaves the all of the D-sub, DB 50, and actually there's a whole range of them, but there's the VCA computer links. They've all currently got just loopback connectors in them, but they'll all be coming out. So all of those connectors all come out next, and then that and there's the computer monitor connections and a couple of other bits and pieces. So I'll release all of those and then get this panel out and removed and off the side. Then that will get this part pretty much clear. Then the plan is to jack up. I'll jack up this end, probably with a high lift car jack, just because of the weight, and it makes it nice and easy, and it can literally just sit in underneath. I'll take the end furniture off and jack this end just up a little bit, unbolt the leg off this side, and then I will probably, well, I've still got to modify the center section, so, and the leg probably needs to bolt into there, so hang on, let's see. Actually no, I'll be able to get away with it because the leg will bolt in into the bucket to the right hand side of the master section, to keep it equidistant with the one at the other end, which is also in the very closest inside, closest to the master section of the first bucket. So some working out to do there. I've got to drill some holes for the bolts to go through for the leg, but I may even just put some temporary props under there, or actually this end will, with everything out, this end will be so light, I would be able to, yeah, it doesn't matter if this swings, I'd be able to bolt the leg in, because that bucket is going to be moving across, because the existing master section bucket is going to come out, and I'm putting in a standard size bucket into there. So a little bit of measuring, a little bit of working out to do. So I may actually bolt that into this bucket, because once the center one's moved out, the one to the left of that is going to become the master one, and this is going to become our stereo bucket. So, and then this one out, and the end furniture onto the end of this bucket, which will leave us with 2, 3, 5 standard 8-channel wide buckets with the factory end furniture. I am going to have to cut down the top pad and the armrest, or I may not cut it. What I might do is, it's not difficult to shape that. I just want to cause minimum destructive modification as possible. So if I could leave those original length for a 48 channel chassis, and make new armrest pad and new top one, I'd make the top one exactly the same profile. That way the monitor mounts that I've got will go straight on. But if I made a new armrest, I could make it a bit deeper and actually integrate a keyboard into it. That might be the go. Have a keyboard nicely recessed into the armrest of the console with a trackball. That could work. Anyway, I was going to do this entire modification in one video, so I wasn't going to release this for probably the next, well, for another 12 months from when I'm recording this now. But I've had a fair bit of motivation. I was looking at just doing this, a few hours a night after work each week, but something's going on, and it's currently end of January 2025. I need to have this out of the way and moved in the next a couple of months, really. So anyway, I've got some motivation to actually get it done. So I've decided to do these videos in multiple parts and release them as I go. So the introduction that I did 2 weeks ago now, from this point, it's not going to be entirely relevant, but I will have flashed up some titles to adjust that. But so anyway, so this is going to actually wrap up the first part of the console modification, and I'll get that out. So that's where we are. So where I'm going to go from here is the patch panels are out. Then there's just some so the next video is going to cover tidying up the ribbon cables, pulling out the master section, pulling apart the buckets, rebolting those together, and getting the console standing on its own 2 feet again in its shortened fashion, ready to then start building up again, which is going to be a significant bit of work to build it back up again. This bit was fairly significant, easy. It was really just a lot of identification, a lot of labeling, because I'm an absolute stickler for for information for down the track. So put the time and the work in now to label as much as possible is going to make it a hell of a lot easier down the track when I pull the cables through to re-terminate, identify, all that kind of thing. So anyway, so that's where we are. I hope you're not too freaked out with the modifications I'm doing to this thing. I was thinking about what I was going to do and how I was going to actually make the studio functional, because even though I originally set this up as a mixing space, which is what it was going to be with a booth for basic simple recordings, COVID then hit, and life's just changed, and it's crazy having a big console sitting here like this, and I've been contemplating what I've been going to do with it for, well, a couple of years now. I've resisted parting it out, which is what I said I would never ever do. And anyway, then I finally decided that I really want to keep it as a functional console, but it was just way too big in its current format, and had elements to it that I really don't need. So, which is why the 6000 section has the 688 has been removed, which I spent a lot of time debating, and I may still regret that. And if I find that it's a big problem or I really do regret it, well, the cool thing is I can put it back in. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's just a matter of swapping the master bucket and put the time in to make it go. So, I've got a great big pile of parts over there. I'm not parting with anything just yet. I'm setting it aside, and I'm pulling it apart in such a way that if I need to, things can be put back in. So anyway, so that's where we are now. I'm going to stop waffling. I hope you're enjoying it, and stick around for the next part, which will probably be in a few weeks from now. Bye. Alright, so here we are underneath the console where all of the DL connectors come to. Going to undo all of these cables that go over to the outboard gear and converters and so on, interfaces I mean, and we'll get that panel ready to start pulling the DL connectors out and the remainder of the patch panels. The cabling going over to the buckets has mostly been removed from the patch panels, so this is the next stage, and then we can remove all the excess cabling out of that patch bay area, and all in preparation to start unbolting buckets and shortening the cabinet. So let's get into it. There we go. All of the patch panels now removed, DL connectors removed. So yeah, just got the power wiring to do. That's pretty easy, and then that is that bucket empty and ready to pull out, with the exception of the meters and a couple of PCBs on the back.